What is going on, everybody? You are back on another edition of Ballin Over Beers, a fantasy and betting show. This is the Week 8 DFS show. I am Justin Dueppengiesser, and I am joined, as always, by my guy, Mr. James Fitch. What's up, dude?
What's going on, Justin?
Not much, dude. You've seen the movie Dune yet?
No, I have been meaning to watch that. Did you watch it?
I did. I watched it the other night with my wife, and
Is it like Star Wars?
Yeah, it's like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, like mixed, like pretty much. But it was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's on a list of things that I want to get to.
Yeah, I would recommend it. Find a free night and check it out. Me and the wife have to try to find something, every once in a while to do together during football season instead of, me at practice or working on practice or recording shows or watching football. So
basically all football.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy. So she's a saint. So we got to do some things every once in a while, But no, highly recommend everybody out there.
Are you ready for some Halloween football?
Dude, I am. Are you gonna get dressed up for anything for Halloween?
No, I'm gonna be tilting the late slate, walking around, taking my son trick or treating, watching it on my phone probably.
Yeah, I've been thinking, like, I don't know, like, what the move is like for where I live. So this is our first Halloween in our house. So like I don't know if like we're gonna get like people. Like I think we gotta have candy ready just in case. But like I don't know if we're gonna get anybody.
I mean, the worst case, you get to eat it. We made the mistake of buying candy like probably a few weeks ago, and I feel like I've eaten half of it already. It's all like crappy stuff, like the Hershey's bars, plain Hershey's bars, and Whoppers and stuff like that.
What's your go-to? What's your go-to?
I don't know if it's gonna be a popular take, but I love Almond Joys, or peanut M&Ms.
See, the Almond Joys, no. You're right. That's a terrible take.
Like, I love them.
the peanut M&Ms, like if you don't like peanut M&Ms, like reevaluate your life because those are excellent. You can't go wrong there.
Absolutely.
For sure. I don't know. I feel like anytime the Reese's come out with like a holiday thing, like the Reese's eggs for Easter are excellent. They have the Reese's pumpkins now. There's just so much more peanut butter in them, so they're just awesome.
Those are always good too.
Oh yeah, those are my go-to. Our candy takes probably better than our Week 7 DFS takes, so we could keep going on the candy, but I don't think we should. How was your Week 7? What were you have any takeaways from last week? Cooper Kupp. Just play Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase every week.
Play Cooper Kupp, play Jamar Chase. Derrick Henry had one of those games where he did all right, but he kind of snapped you if you spent up. So that could, tread carefully with Cooper Kupp and Jamar. Those weeks are going to come for those guys. You can never guess when it is, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Isn't that the thing with Derrick Henry too? What's that? Derrick Henry, 29 carries. They're up like 27-0, and he has 86 yards rushing and he threw the touchdown in early, but like no rushing touchdowns, nothing.
Yeah,
30 touches and like 15 fantasy points.
And the crazy thing is, we'll talk about our favorite stacks, but I kind of like Ryan Tannehill this week with AJ Brown. I think you can get away with. There are studies that show, I think, that Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry all kind of correlate positively with each other the way they play. So, my takeaway is I should probably play less GPPs and play more cash. I've had a really strong season on the cash side of the house, and I've done very poorly with cashing in GPPs, and hopefully that changes, but hasn't been good on that side of the house.
Yeah, no, my biggest takeaway was, I got relentlessly mocked on the show for saying I liked Tua in the Miami stack early in the week. We record these on a Wednesday night, so I was on it early. Tua had a good one. Now Waddle was just okay, but Gesicki had a great game. They were cheap. That was a pretty good stack. Um, yeah, just I went back to the well with the Stafford Cup and Henderson stack. So I did that 2 weeks in a row, and Henderson didn't get there, but Cup went off. Like last week, I just had too much Chiefs. Like that was a game like I was expecting the shootout. I think everybody was kind of on that game, obviously, and I think in my non-main Chief stacks, I even had like a Kelsey at tight end who didn't really get there, because he was priced up. So it made it real tough to do anything positive.
Yeah, I found that I need to get more comfortable paying down like the stack, like the Tua stacks that you identified this week. Like people make those suggestions and I need to remove like biases about like, ugh, that sounds gross. Like, why would you do that? Like those more often than not end up being the plays.
If you thought Tua was bad, boy, do I got a couple for you this week. Let's get into it. We'll start with quarterbacks like we always do. And the most expensive guy this week, Mr. Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. You got the hat on, $8,100. Stafford is 76, Brady 74, Herbert 73, Hurts 72, Burrow 71. I don't know of this top stack who I really like, to be honest with you. I want to lean Stafford because of that matchup with Houston and like what they've been doing. But like every team that plays Houston just hands the ball off and they just maul them. Like the Patriots, Damian Harris, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Like even Bolden was okay, like more than just the passing game for them. Like it's really tough looking at this top thing. Maybe Brady, you just keep going to him because he's just been awesome this year. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. If I play Allen, it'll be in cash. I just think he's too expensive. I don't really see a need to have to like pay up for him this week. And Brady's matchup scares me a little bit. Like I feel like Tampa Bay has some disappointing games against the Saints in the regular season. So I'm worried about that. I like Stafford's matchup a little bit better. I do worry that they will get to a point where they will be running the ball, but you could probably do a Stafford, maybe a Cup and an Anderson again. I feel like that's kind of been chalky the last few weeks, but
yeah,
if those hit and you get creative with your builds at running back or in other places, that's fine. So of those three, I'd probably lean towards Stafford right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Hurts is going to get pretty popular because the Lions defense is just so bad. And I think he'll be popular for cash. So I can definitely see going there. And, even Burrow, he's got a matchup with the Jets who just proved to be terrible. But again, does that get into a situation where it's just turn around and hand the ball to Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine the whole time? That's tough. Let's keep going down here. Ryan Tannehill's the next guy at 66. He starts off that $6,000 range, which is a whopping 2 people because him and Jameis Winston are the only ones in there. Winston at 6,000, and then it drops all the way into the fives with Matt Ryan at 59, Wentz at 57, Jimmy G at 56, Darnold at 56, Tua at 55, Mayfield at 55, Trevor Lawrence at 55, Trey Lance at 54, Big Ben at 54. And I'm just going to read the other name that I like at 53 is Tyler Heineke. So my 2 shit quarterback stacks of the week, Tyler Heineke at 53 and Trevor Lawrence at 55. They're probably my 2 favorite quarterback plays on the board. I think they present a ton of value at their price. They have good matchups. Trevor Lawrence going against the Seahawks in a game that the Seahawks secondary is just not good. They are 32nd in the NFL per DVOA against the pass. They're not very good at rushing the passer. The game has good pace. Jacksonville, number 1 pace team in the NFL. Seattle's 12th in the NFL in pace. So you're going to have a lot of plays in that game. And then with Heineke, he hasn't been bad like all year, right? He's had some not great games, but he provides a sneaking amount of rushing upside. Broncos are 29th per DVOA against the pass. not very great at rushing the passer. The pace isn't great. Denver likes to slow it down. So that's not great. Neither of these games are huge totals, but there's really not any huge totals on the entire week. So I think with the value that you get with this going against the bad defenses, and their stacking options are good, right? You can stack Heineke with McLaurin. You can stack Trevor Lawrence with James Robinson and Marvin Jones, which is the route that I think I'm going to go because I think Robinson's a smash play this week. I think those are my two favorite plays on the entire board at quarterback.
Yeah, I like both of those. I mean, Heineke just ran bad last week, like literally, like falling at the 1 yard line, not getting it. They spent so much time in the red zone and just didn't capitalize last week. Like it's hard to imagine that'll happen again. He's going to have his turnovers and make his mistakes, but he's going to get his fantasy points, especially doing it on the ground with his feet. And I think you make good points about Trevor Lawrence, and he's cheap.
No question. Anybody in the sixes that you're higher than that you like at all? Like it's kind of a gross quarterback week, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking at Tannehill. That Tennessee Colts game is the only game with a total above 50, which means he's probably going to be pretty chalky this week. We saw him bounce back and have a better fantasy game last week, and I expect that to continue against the Colts. So I like pairing Tannehill up with AJ Brown. I don't know that I'm going to go back to Henry this week, and I like bringing it back with either Jonathan Taylor or actually probably spending down to get some leverage off of Taylor, maybe Michael Pittman at 5,300. So I like the way you can stack that game. I like the total. Tannehill gets it done on the ground too. He scored rushing touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. So he can do that definitely.
Yeah, and speaking of Derrick Henry, he is the most expensive running back on the slate. He is $8,900. And then you go down from that, it's Elvin Kamara at 87, McCaffrey's at 84, but he's still in IR as of right now. Eckler at 79, Najee at 75, Jonathan Taylor at 72, DeAndre Swift at 71. The big thing that stood out to me right away was DeAndre Swift, his price is bumped up. We've seen him, from what we say 6 to 65 pretty much for the past few weeks, and now he's already all the way up over 7. Anybody in this range other than Jonathan Taylor that you talked about in that game, Najee's always so interesting to me because he could come out and he could literally catch 10 passes. Like the targets are so crazy. 19, 7, 5, and 7 in his last 4 games as a running back. That's more than some wide receivers. And that's like right now he's basically getting more targets than DeAndre Hopkins is in Arizona.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's getting expensive. Him, Taylor, and Swift are all a little expensive this week. We saw Swift kind of get that bump, Taylor get that bump based on their recent performances. I think a guy like Swift compares well to Harris in terms of the targets and the passing work and kind of the run efficiency. So, I'd pay down to Swift probably amongst those options, but I don't think I'm going to play any of those guys. We had talked amongst ourselves about kind of that 6K range, just this season being kind of the sweet spot for running backs. And I think there's a lot of great options there this week. So I'll probably end up seeing myself spend up at wide receiver a little bit more, and kind of spending in that 6K range at running back.
Yeah, the 6K range this week starts with Joe Mixon at 6,900. And it drops down to Chuba Hubbard at 6,000. But right away, I already mentioned him, James Robinson at 6,600 against the Seahawks defense, Darrell Henderson at 65, who have been playing a ton. These are two guys that can just get so much volume, and honestly, I think they're priced too low. And then, shockingly enough, I think the other guy that I like a lot in this range is Cordarrelle Patterson, $6,200, 14 carries each of the last 2 weeks, going against Carolina defense. He's still getting targets in that. He's getting so much work right now. It is just, it's bizarre to think about as him as being like the guy, but like he is.
Yeah, I can't get there. I just don't think that's enough work for me. I'd rather actually save $1,000 and play Damian Harris. I think Harris might actually be one of my favorite running back plays on the week. he's against the Chargers defense that's just giving up so many yards, so many fantasy points to the running back. Again, I think ownership's probably going to be high on him, but it's just one of those, I don't care. Like, I just want to play him and I can get creative in other spots. I think he's probably going to be a guy that I want to get into most, if not all of my lineups.
Yeah, he's coming off of a really good week. He's somebody that obviously the Patriots have leaned on quite a bit they want to be a running team, I think, the Patriots, and especially going against the Chargers, who are not a good rush defense, who kind of just let that happen, right? They don't care if they give up rushing yards. I think that's a pretty good call right there. Let's keep going down the range, and that starts with Kareem Hunt, who is on IR at 5,800, Antonio Gibson at 57, and then it drops down to a bunch of people in the 5,000. DJ Dallas, Mike Davis, Kenny Gainwell. One of the interesting things to keep an eye on all week will be what happens with Miles Sanders. He did get banged up, and if he ends up being out, where does the ownership coming in? Kenny Gainwell. And then the other guy is Boston Scott, right? So last week he came in when Sanders left the game, and he had 7 carries for 24 yards and 2 targets, where Gainwell's kind of more of this, like, the speed guy. They'll put him out to catch passes. They'll put him out in other spots. Boston Scott's only $4,400 against the Detroit Lions. And if Sanders doesn't play, he's almost a free square. Like, I don't want to see you have to play him, but man, that's tough for a guy that could potentially get at least a 60-40 split of that backfield to not get him in. I do think there's other interesting names in this $5,000 range. Elijah Mitchell seemed to be the guy in San Francisco. Whenever he's been healthy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, he's a guy that I think I want to get in this week. My concern with him is his lack of passing down work. He's not on the field on third downs. They bring in JaMychal Hasty. So it's a little concerning. But what kills me is Shanahan's usage of, we saw him come out on the first drive and have 60, 70 yards and a touchdown. And then he just totally gets away from him and throws all these stupid passes that don't work. Yep. And every time they used him, he gained 7-8 yards. And it's just like, he could have easily had a 200-yard rush game last week. So I don't know. I don't think Shanahan's a good coach, and that's starting to, maybe I'm not the only one that thinks that, but like, I think that's starting to come out.
Yeah, Darius Leonard, I think it was Darius Leonard, came out and said, they really had us on his heels on the first drive and ran a ton of misdirection and did all this stuff. And he's like, I'm really glad that they went away from that. So it's like, kind of went away from what was working and kind of shot yourself in the foot. But in that same game, Khalil Herbert, like, what do you do with him in the Chicago backfield? He's even with Damian Williams now. Who knows if he's all the way healthy? But Damian Williams was back on the field playing last week, and he still had 18 carries for 100 yards and 5 targets.
Yeah, I think Damian Williams will eat into some more of that work as he gets healthier. And who knows? That's just Matt Nagy may not be coaching this game, so maybe we can expect things that actually make sense this week, which would be more of like riding the hot hand in Herbert. But who knows? That's a backfield I want to stay away from, especially as looking forward, Montgomery gets healthier and comes back too. It's just kind of a messy backfield that I don't really think I want any part of.
What about Zach Moss and Myles Gaskin in that game? These are both guys in the $5,000 range who could end up getting a considerable amount of work, and for their price, right? Gaskin is a guy that they look to in the passing game if you think the Dolphins are going to be down, which they are. They're big dogs in this game. And then Zach Moss is a guy they tend to use in the goal line situations.
Yeah, I think I like Gaskin probably a bit more. He's 3 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. He's getting targets, so he's catching balls. I think did Malcolm Brown just get hurt?
Yes, he is out.
So less competition there. Of those two, I'd probably go Gaskin. I think the game script sets up better for him in a PPR format. I don't know. Zach Moss is just so hard to predict. I mean, last week we thought he was in a good spot, and it was Devin Singletary week or 2 weeks ago. So that Bills backfield, I just want to stay away from it.
I think that's fair. It is a tough backfield, especially in an offense that seems to want to still throw the ball more than they're running it. Below $5,000, anything that interests you? I guess right under that $5,000 level, Michael Carter and Samaje Perine are both kind of interesting in that same game. Ty Johnson is banged up for the Jets, and he didn't play a lot of the last game. And with him out, Michael Carter saw 9 targets while still getting 11 carries. So he's had double-digit carries in 4 of his last 5 games, and then he has that 9 targets. If Ty Johnson's out, and this is a game where you expect him to be down, they're 10.5-point dogs. Now, the scary thing is I think it's Josh Johnson at quarterback, but maybe he comes in and just dumps it off to Michael Carter 10 times.
Yeah, he had 9 for 67 last week,
Yeah.
or 9 targets, 8 receptions for 67 yards. So not a horrible play. I don't think I have the gall to play a Jets running back in a matchup where they're going to get blown out, but I think he makes some good points. What do you think about this? You're probably going to throw up a little bit, but with the trade of Mark Ingram, what do we think of David Johnson at 4,200?
I mean, $4,200 is just, I mean, that's wild. And you know what the thing is with David Johnson, he was already the guy in the backfield that was the guy getting the most of the targets. So now if Mark Ingram's not there to get carries as well, like unless they're planning on using Philip Lindsay a lot more, I don't know. $4,200 is so cheap in a game that they're going to be down. Like again, he's a guy that could see 10 targets.
Yeah, he had 6 targets last week. 5 for 27, 7 attempts for 7 rushes for 25 yards. So I wouldn't expect big things out of him on the ground, but I think he can be kind of a PPR fill-in. So if you're really kind of crunched for salary and need to save a little bit, I don't hate that. He's probably the cheapest play I'd look at.
No, for sure. And I guess the big thing is, again, this is a Wednesday night, so a lot of things change, but you're going to have to keep your eye on the injury report. Guys like Boston Scott, who might end up being in and getting it at worst a 50-50 split. If Ty Johnson's out, then Michael Carter's getting more carries. Now Mark Ingram's gone. So there's some options where we haven't really seen options in this lower $4,000 range that if you do want to jam up some of these wide receivers that are up top, these heavy price guys, I mean, really Kupp's the most expensive one. So if you want to jam him into a lineup with like a Derrick Henry or something like that, who's expensive, it's a way to save money, I guess. So let's talk receivers though. Cooper Kupp, $9,000. I mean, that just jumps off the page. The next expensive guy, Stephon Diggs at 81. Mike Williams at 77, McLaurin at 76, Chase at 75, Debo at 74, DJ Moore at 72, Mike Evans at 7,000. Tough not to want to play Kupp, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's a guy that you just get in there with Stafford and do that, or you get him into a cash lineup. The decision is generally it seems to lately have been, all right, you got to play Kupp, Adams, and Henry. You get 1 or 2 out of the 3. Obviously, we don't have to worry about Adams on the slate. I do still have to think about Derrick Henry, but I don't know, 9,000. I don't know that I want to pay up for it. I might kind of go down to Diggs. I don't know that I'll have any cut. If I do end up with a Stafford stack, I mean, Kupp's got to be in there.
For sure. 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 12, 13 targets in 7 weeks so far this year. 4 games of 2 touchdowns or more.
Yeah.
I mean, just mind-blowing numbers from a wide receiver so far in fantasy.
I mean, regression's coming. It's inevitable.
It's got to, right?
It will. I mean, it's just not sustainable. It's going to be a Robert Woods week. There's going to be, Darrell Henderson week. Like, it's just going to happen.
Yeah, math just doesn't seem on the side of that, unless he's going to go out and do like some all-time generational thing, which is just, it's hard to think that's going to be the case. So
yeah.
I love McLaurin in this range. I think him and Heineke, it makes a really nice stack. And then, again, Jamar Chase is a tough one to get away from with the way he's been playing. If you go down into the $6,000 range, it starts with AJ Brown at 6,900, and it goes all the way down to Antonio Brown at 6,100, who still has the doubtful tag on him. We'll have to keep track of his injury throughout the week. But I think there's some nice, interesting plays in here. I think in that Washington Denver game, I think Cortland Sutton's a pretty interesting bring back. Jerry Jeudy might be back, but I think that might keep people off of Sutton. And I still think Sutton's a super talent in a game that they might need to throw a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like Antonio Brown's injury is actually more serious than initially thought. I was reading that he could be out a few weeks. I don't know if it's a high ankle sprain or a fracture, but he was seen with crutches today at practice. I think he's definitely out this week and potentially even more. Wow. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. I love Deontay Johnson this week at 67. I love AJ Brown at 6,900. I talked about how that's going to probably end up being one of the games I look to stack. Deontay Johnson's just so reliable with targets, great in a PPR format. He seems to be getting some deep shots, so the air yards are there too. So I like those guys this week.
I love the Deontay Johnson call. He's a guy that might kind of fly under the radar too, with all the names that are around him and him kind of coming back. And so I think that's a super good call there. If you go down below 6,000, that range starts with Marvin Jones Jr. at 5,900, goes down to Jarvis Landry at 5,000. I already mentioned I love Trevor Lawrence. I think that, Marvin Jones makes for a good stack. Last time we saw him in week 6, he had 10 targets for 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. So I think that is pretty nice. Michael Pittman, I know that you like him quite a bit, don't you, James?
Yeah, I like him as a cheaper bring back option in that Tennessee Colts game.
Yeah. I don't know if there's too many other people I like in this range. Pretty wild.
T. Higgins.
Okay. Talk to me about T. Higgins, because he's getting into the Calvin Ridley territory for me. Just kind of not exciting me.
You don't like 15 targets?
I do like 15 targets, but I just feel like he doesn't do anything with them.
I think he had a hot start. He had a couple of touchdowns at the beginning of the year, and then he hasn't. He missed 2 games, I think. And then I think he's just kind of slowly getting back into it. I on the topic of regression, I just think what Jamar Chase is doing is just it's not going to keep happening.
Right.
So I think the pendulum is going to swing back to T. Higgins. I'm a big pendulum swinging guy, and I have to imagine that those targets are going to result in catches, yards, and hopefully touchdowns. And I just like the $5,200 price tag. He's probably going to end up being a cash play for me. To save a little bit at wide receiver. I don't know, I'll get him into tournaments, but he's just kind of like, there are a lot of people out there that just want to jam Robbie Anderson every week because it's going to happen. I think T. Higgins has a better shot of making that actually happen. So I don't know. I probably like him more than I should.
Yeah. Talking about guys who get targets that don't do anything with it. Robbie Anderson is like the poster child for that. $4,700 this week.
It's crazy. Allen Robinson, 49. He's 47. Odell's 46. Like, what's going on?
Robbie Anderson had 9 targets and he had 14 yards. That is so bad. That is so bad.
He might retire after this year.
Dude, he should. Holy cow. He's killing me. Anybody in this $4,000 range? I think that Cole Beasley's kind of an interesting play, because Xavier Howard and Byron Jones are back. The Dolphins are definitely more susceptible in the slot. And if you like Allen, that might be a nice stack.
I love all of the Bills targets. Manuel Sanders is a little bit more. I think he's at 54, but with Dawson Knox, essentially one less like primary mouth to feed.
Yeah.
Beasley's a good option. I like Gabriel Davis. I don't even know what he's priced at. I got to keep scrolling down here. He's at 3,300. That's kind of, that might be like that cheap, like when you're digging for a wide receiver in the threes. I like that as a play because he's a red zone target, just like Knox. Knox isn't going to be playing. We don't really know what he's going to do for that offense. So And we saw Gabriel Davis have a good year last year. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. So at 3,300, like that's a good cheap play, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't hate it. And really everything else down here is just, it's not great. I think that Russell Gage, potentially at 4,200, basically when he's played and been healthy, he's gotten targets. He's gotten 7 and 6 targets. So the Falcons, I just don't know if I trust that offense to be consistent, I guess, enough to be okay. Like they have a decent matchup this week with Carolina.
Yeah.
So I guess that's not.
They just haven't shown it yet, right? The consistency.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just so scary, and like you just worry about a team that's not very good playing them, I guess. But I say that, and then I love the freaking Trevor Lawrence stack in the Jags. So who knows? I don't know. That's kind of all I got at receiver. Donovan People-Jones or anything like that do anything for you?
Never.
Just never. DPJ.
Cleveland wide receivers, just no.
No, I don't blame you. Van Jefferson at 39.
I think if I'm playing a Stafford stack, like a double, I would I'd probably look at him, Cup, and then paying down Van Jefferson to get exposure to that offense cheaply.
Yeah, it's just whether or not he gets a touchdown. Kind of, he ranges between 3 and 7 targets, so it's whether or not he can get in the end zone for you. So
yeah,
I think that's good for receiver. Let's talk about tight end. Kyle Pitts coming off of a monster game, $6,300, most expensive tight end. Hawk at 54. Kittle is still on IR, but 51. Gesicki 5,000. Fant 49. I am the one who Dawson Knox 48. Goddard 47. Gronk 46, who apparently is going to play. Higbee 45. Henry 42. I don't know. In a game, again, the Dolphins are going to be trailing. Mike Gesicki, 6, 7, 9, 8 targets the last 4 games. It's your boy.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I will probably look to him if I kind of like a mini correlation or mini stack with Diggs and then bringing it back with Gesicki. That's if I'm willing to spend up a little bit. He's probably the most expensive tight end I'm going to consider this week. Fant's kind of tempting. We saw Tunyon have a decent week against Washington last week, so Fant is kind of a decent option. This is probably for me, in all honesty, going to be a pay down week. I mean, CJ Uzama at 37 is not bad, but I think we were talking about sub 3,000 tight ends that we like. Tommy Sweeney, and then I want to always play. Where is he? Dan Arnold at 2,800. The postman Dan Arnold. So he's a guy that you can rely on to get you a 3 for 30, 4 for 40. It doesn't kill you. If he gets a touchdown, even better.
It's certainly an interesting way that, I'm talking about stacking up the Jags. You want to double stack it, you could go him and Marvin Jones if it wanted to get you away from some of the James Robinson, because I think Robinson's going to be pretty chalky. Like, I think everybody's going to see the usage for Robinson going against the Seahawks defense and think that he's in a smash spot. So might provide some leverage just if you're thinking passing game, it gets you, the double there.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get kind of that stack and use a cheap tight end at the same time.
Yeah, defenses.
Washington.
I was just going to say, I think that you just, the thing is Washington's secondary is absolute trash. They can't cover anybody.
They can still get you sacks, though.
Exactly, but they still are generating a ton of pressure. Like, their front is still generating pressure. It's just their their linebackers and secondary are just so bad right now.
Are they going to be the chalk D of the week just because they're so cheap? Right. Everyone's going to want to cram in like some other players.
Yeah, it's $2,100. I don't know. And then I looked, if you want to pay up a little bit, I don't mind the Eagles at $2,700. Again,
Lions. They burned me last week.
Did they? Yeah, Lions.
I had them everywhere.
Lions O-line is just not good, and they have a good pass rush from their D-line, so I don't mind that. I don't know. Can you
Bills at 33 if you're going to really spend up? I wouldn't go above that. I don't think it's ever worth spending the $5,100 that the Rams are going to cost you to play Houston. I guess you could argue that you're getting contrarian there because nobody ever wants to
Yeah.
spend up. But defense, there's just so much variance. It's tough to predict.
Yeah.
What's
My
going to happen.
my question is how many people are going to play the Bengals defense at 36 against the Jets, who are probably starting Josh Johnson?
I mean, it could be like the Cardinals last week where it was chalk, but like it won a lot of people lineups. They were played in tournaments and they were in tournament winning lineups. So I don't know. Might be worth thinking about if you have the extra money.
Yeah. Could be like, stack Joe Mixon and the Bengals defense up, and I think
There
it's
you
going
go.
to be get ahead and then throw some turnovers, run the ball out. So be interesting to see where that goes. Before we get out of here, why don't you just, who is your favorite stack of the week? And then I'll give you mine. We'll get out of here.
It'll probably change, but right now I'm looking at Tannehill, Brown, AJ Brown, and either like a Pittman or I probably won't get up to Jonathan Taylor. I'll probably go with like a Pittman bring back.
I like it. That's an interesting game. I hadn't really thought about it too much until you mentioned it. So I'm gonna have to look into that game quite a bit. So I think mine the Jags in Washington there, Lawrence and Heineke. I think they have good stacking options. Trevor Lawrence, you can go James Robinson, Marvin Jones. You can throw in Dan Arnold if you want to do a stack in that to get cheap. And then obviously Terry McLaurin is super interesting. Even like a JD McKissick, we didn't really mention it, but like Antonio Gibson is so banged up, right? Like he seems to like he's just like literally injured. Like at what point does he like get hurt and just not come back in the game?
Yeah, we said it last week of the week, and maybe even the week before.
I was
Like,
gonna we might have been saying this for 3 weeks now. Like, what is going
they got to
on?
shut him down. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so McKissick's actually kind of interesting in that too. So I think that's good, man. We ready to win some monies or what?
One of us has to hit big.
Well, yeah, that's my retirement plan. So
hasn't happened yet, but one of us will do it.
Absolutely. All right, you can find us on Twitter. He's James Fitch at Fitchy24. I am JDiz1617. You can find us at Ballin Over or at Borderfield Sports. Make sure that you're smashing the like button on the way out, and you tell us who your favorite stack of the week is. We'd love to hear from you. It goes a long way for us, for the comments, the likes. Make sure you subscribe as well. Appreciate everybody being here. Good luck this week. Talk to you next time.